What up, what up, what up? We're streaming, we're beaming, we're creaming. Got some SEP on the screen, as usual. I love my Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Today we're going to be reading about change and inconsistency. This was published in December 18th, 2002. And it was revised February 13th, 2020. We're just gonna start reading, see how far we get. And yeah. Hopefully you enjoy. Change is so pervasive in our lives that it almost defeats description and analysis. One can think of it in a very general way of alteration, but alteration in a thing raises subtle problems. One of the most perplexing is the problem of the consistency of change. How can one thing have incompatible properties and yet remain the same thing? Some have held that change is a consistent process, and rendered so by the existence of time. Oh shit. Others have held that the only way to make sense of change is as an inconsistency. This entry surveys the history of this problem, incognate issues, and concludes that the case for change is inconsistent. And concludes that the case for change as inconsistency cannot be dismissed so easily. Oh, okay. What the fuck is cognate? My shit's muted. History of this problem and cognate issues having the same linguistic derivation as another. What the fuck? Okay. Section 1, Introduction. The most general conception of change is simply difference or non-identity in the features of things. Okay. Thus, we speak of the change of temperature from place to place along a body, or the change in atmospheric pressures from place to place, as recorded by isobars, or the change of height of the surface of the Earth as recorded by a contour map. Contour lines record sameness in quantities, such as 100 meters, for the same quality kind, such as height. And the differences recorded by different contour lines are quantity differences, 100 meters as opposed to 200 meters. The philosophical question here is how to construe such statements of identity and non-identity. And it seems that the problem of universals is the main issue. Okay, so like there are, because I don't know what the fuck is contour. Dude, an outline, especially when representing or bounding the shape. Okay, so the contour lines recording the sameness in quantities, such as 100 meters, for the same quantity kind. So there's a quantity. Hold on. I don't know if pets are being devious. Biscuit. You being devious? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So there's quantity and there's quality. Quality is going to be the nature of the thing, I'm guessing, and then quantity is going to be how much of the nature of the thing that we're measuring, kind of. A narrower usage of change is exemplified by change in the properties of a body over time, that is, temporal change. This essay will focus on temporal change. We begin by separating the concept of change from several cognate concepts, specifically cause, time, and motion. Then we briefly survey attempts by such thinkers as Parmenides and McTaggart to deny change. I don't know who McTaggart is, but Parmenides, that's a pre-Socratic philosopher. There follows an account of the problem of the instant of change, where it is concluded that the problem is too general to admit a single solution, but requires specification of further metaphysical principles envisaged, I'm guessing that's envisaged, contemplate or conceived of as a possibility or desirable future event. Whoa. Envisage. Siege. Further metaphysical principles envisaged as constraints on a type of solution. The final three sections, the bulk of the essay, consider the question of the consistency or inconsistency of change, which in one way or another looms over all our discussions. It emerges that the case for change as an inconsistent process is stronger than it might be expected. All right, section 2, change, cause, time, and motion. Our interest in this essay will be on the special case of temporal change. So construed, the notion of change is obviously, hold on. Yeah, we'll do it like this. So construed, the notion of change is obviously bound up with the notions of cause, time, and motion. Biscuit. Okay, I'm going to regret this, but here. Now, a distinction between... Lay down, Biscuit. Come here. Just lay down. Now, a distinction between change, cause can certainly be drawn. It is clear that uncaused change is conceptually possible and arguably actual in such things as radioactive decay. Conversely, the operation of a sustaining cause results in no change in a thing. If the thing would otherwise be undergoing a change with the sustaining cause, which the sustaining cause prevents. Stop. You're going to take off my Band-Aid. Hence, the operation of a cause on a thing is neither necessary nor sufficient for a change in that thing. Accordingly, we must put the topic of the cause in the background when discussing change. Time cannot be so backgrounded. The thesis that time could pass without change in anything at all has proved controversial, and we have adopted the usage that change in a thing implies the passage of time. Aristotle nonetheless argued that change is distinct from time because change occurs at different rates, whereas time does not. This essay focuses on the topic of change while not denying that the topic of time is inseparable from it. Motion, as change in place, will figure prominently in our discussion. One well-known idea is that of Cambridge change. This can be arrived at by following the well-tried analytical technique of recasting philosophically important discussions and concepts in the meta-language. Whoa. Thus, a Cambridge change in a thing is a change in the descriptions, truly, born by the thing. The phrase Cambridge change seems to be due to Geach, Geach, who so named it to mark its employment by great Cambridge philosophers such as Russell and McTaggart. It is apparent that Cambridge change includes all cases ordinarily thought of as change, such as change of color from red to non-red, but it also includes changes in the relational predicates of a thing, such as when I change from having non-brother true of me to having brother true of me, just when my mother gives birth to a second son. It might seem faintly paradoxical that there need be no other change, that there need be no other changes in me, height, weight, coloring, memories, character, thoughts, in this circumstance, but it is simply a consequence of the above piece of metalinguistic assent. It does point up, though. That in attempting to capture biscuit, please. That in attempting to capture the object language concept, one should take note of the distinction between the monadic or internal or intrinsic properties of a thing and its relations or external or extrinsic features. Thus, the natural view of change is that real metaphysical change in a thing would be change in the monadic or internal or intrinsic properties of the thing. We will return to this point in section 5. Okay. Section 3. Denying change. It is... Oh, wait, hold on. Christ, Biscuit. Lay your head down. It's okay, Biscuit. Just don't lay it on my computer. It is on the face of it extremely plausible to deny change, but extreme implausibility has not always deterred philosophers. The eletics, particularly Parmenides, appear to have been the first to do so. Parmenides maintained that whatever one speaks about or thinks about must in some sense exist. If it did not exist, then it is nothing. So one would be speaking or thinking about nothing, which would be empty. From this thesis, it is deduced that the existing thing cannot have come into existence, because to say that it could would be to speak of a time when it did not exist. By similar reasoning, existing things are eternal because they cannot grow out of existence. It is now a small step to conclude that change is an illusion, on the grounds that a change in a thing implies that there was a time when the thing as changed did not exist. However, this argument is not persuasive. The premise that the non-existent cannot be thought of or spoken about is dubious. Parmenides' disciples, Melissus and Zeno, developed this theme. Melissus argued that motion implies empty space to move into, but empty space... Melissus argued that motion implies empty space to move into, but empty space is nothing and so cannot exist. So that motion is impossible since it implies a contradiction. This argument requires the dubious premises. One, that empty space is a nothing, which is denied by realists from Newton to Knowledge, and two, that motion would have to be change relative to space. Even those who have held that empty space is a nothing, relationists from Leibniz to Mach and onward, have not generally denied motion, proposing instead that motion of a thing is the change in the spatial relations between that thing and other things. Biscuit, are you okay? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Maybe this is a little too. This is boring for you, Biscuit. Hold on. Parmenides' disciples, Melissus. Wait, hold on. I just read that. Whoops. Biscuit, please. Move your head. Zeno's brilliant paradoxes are generally accounted as attempts to defend Parmenides. We will not look at these in detail, but his paradox of the arrow is relevant to what follows. This is the argument that an arrow in flight could not really be moving because at any given instant it would be at a place identical with itself, and not another place. Something at just one self-identical place cannot be described as moving, and an arrow which is motionless at every instant in a temporal interval must be motionless throughout the interval. I don't fucking understand that, but okay. Maybe I'll understand it if I read it a little more. Discussions of the subtle argument is deferred until the discussion in a later section of Graham Priest's position, which turns on similar premises. McTaggart's well-known argument, 1908, that time is unreal applies equally to the unreality of temporal change, it seems. McTaggart distinguished it between two ways of attributing temporal characteristics to events. The A series of events is given by the descriptions past, present, and future. What's all this stuff on you? Okay. While the B series is strictly in terms of relational concepts, earlier, simultaneous, and later. Now, the B series is insufficient to define change because B series relations apply unchangingly if they apply at all. Whatever is earlier than something is always earlier than it. Moreover, the B series presupposes that A series, since if X precedes Y, then there must be a time when X is past and Y is present. The step in the argument is not at all absurd. This step in the argument is not at all absurd. The discovery of space-time, the relativistic realization of the B series, has impelled many from Minkowski onto describe it as a static conception of time. A genuinely dynamic conception of change would thus need to have things coming into and going out of existence with the passage of time, whereas space-time invites quantification over it all at once, as it were. Thus, according to McTaggart, the source of time and change must be found in the A series, but the A series implies a vicious regress. Any event must have all three properties: pastness, presentness, and futurity. But this is a contradiction. The only way out of the contradiction is to say that the event is past, present, and future at different times. But the same question arises about the temporal instants themselves, which would force us to appeal to a future time series to avoid the contradiction. Whatever we make of this argument, and much has been written about it, it highlights the baffling nature of the apparent passage of time. In particular, if temporal flux is denied, then at the least an explanation of its intuitive naturalness is mandatory. For a close analysis, see the entry Savit in the encyclopedia. However, one thing can be said about all of the above denials of change. They all argue against change on the ground that it implies a contradiction. But the assumption of the consistency of change has been denied by a number of influential figures, as we will see. However, wait, hold on. I did just read that. Sometimes I just read shit and I'm just not remembering like anything I'm reading. Section 4, the instant of change. Consider a car moving off from rest at exactly noon. What is the state of motion at the instant of change? If it is in motion, when did it start? And if it is motionless, when could it ever begin? This problem was explored by Medlin, 1963, Hamblin, 1969, and others. Put this way, a solution for that at least some special cases is readily available. Put this way, a solution for at least some special cases is readily available. Locate the time origin, t equals 0 at noon. Locate the time origin, t equals 0 at noon. If the car's position function f is given by, say, ft equals t squared, then its speed is 2t. If motion is defined as having non-zero speed, then the car is motionless at t equals 0. On the other hand, at all t over 0, it is in motion. On the other hand, at all t over 0, it is in motion. So there is surely no puzzle about when it could ever begin. There is no first instant of motion. Whoa. There is no first instant of motion, Biscuit. However, there are more troublesome special cases. Suppose that the car's position function is given by ft equals 0 for all t over 0, else fucking Christ, I hate math. Ft equaling t. Then speed is 0 for all t over t under 0, or less than 0. And speed is 1 for all t over 0, t more than 0. But what if t equals 0? One should avoid arbitrary solutions, which attribute one speed rather than another, but do not give reason for so privileging. There is, of course, at least one simple solution that is not arbitrary, namely, that it is neither in motion nor motionless, since its speed is indeterminate at t equals 0. This solution derives from the fact that according to classical calculus, there is no derivative such as function at t equals 0. What can we do no better? The present author, 1985, proposed to set aside the problem until more is said about various possible constraints on the solution. Unless we had some reason to think that such functions really did describe the world, we might well feel that a solution was less than imperative and less than unique. For example, the world might be described wholly with C infinity functions. Nth derivatives exist for all n. Examples, cos, sine, log, exponential functions. The above function is not among these, since its derivative is discontinuous. But then, isn't it clear what we might say of it if the example is counterfactual? There might be different things to say depending on what further principles describe the possible world. Hence, we would need to supplement the original statement of the problem with an argument to the effect that we might expect such functions to describe the real world, or alternatively supply additional metaphysical principles to be regarded as constraints on the solution. I'm not gonna lie, this section has completely fucking lost me. But I'm gonna continue reading. This guy, I swear, if you keep pushing on me, I'm gonna. All right. A related problem is the fracture problem described by Medlin. Imagine, I swear, fucking God, Biscuit. Imagine fracturing a material body such as a piece of wood, regarded as a plenum. Plenum. Whoa. What cool words I am learning today. Biscuit, I swear to God, I'm gonna eat your ancestors. Dogs, I swear. What is the state of the two new surfaces after the fracture? Unless matter is to be created or destroyed, we seem to have to say that the break is half open, with one new matter surface being topologically closed and the other being topologically open. But which surface is which? There seems to be no principle to determine which. In response, it can be asked how seriously we have to take the postulation of a plenum. If, for example, matter is as Boscovich suggested, punctate and surrounded by fields, then there are no plena, and the problem is no more than hypothetical. Or again, there might be plena, but other principles might apply. For example, mass density functions might drop smoothly to zero at the boundaries between matter and empty space, which would mean that all surfaces were open. On the other hand, it might be instead that, as a matter of fact, all surfaces are topologically closed. This would need an inconsistent solution. Number 5. Oh, dude. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Yeah, no. Yeah, we're not reading all that, Biscuit. Yeah, I mean that was a section of change and inconsistency. Biscuit, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you want to lay on my? I'm not talking to anyone, Biscuit. Yeah. What's all this stuff on you, Biscuit? Okay. Yeah, we're just gonna stop at section 4. Section 5 just seems a little too long for my taste right now. And I'm trying to get back into writing. I'm not trying to be a pro at it. So, Biscuit, I swear to fucking God. Okay. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for reading with me. Thank you for embarking on this journey of information. I love you. I hope you're doing have a great day. And keep on keeping on. Bye.